Come on in the kitchen with me for another easy and delicious homemade recipe. I do have another video where I made vegetable beef soup, but it was in the Instant Pot, so this is a way you can make it on the stove with chicken instead of ground beef. Basic ingredients for this chicken vegetable soup. Really, you need to keep some of these things on hand at all time. Obviously, onion, all the time you need it. Potatoes are good in the soup. Cabbage is good in the soup. But a good staple thing to keep in your freezer is some mixed vegetables. I didn't have them, so I have some peas and carrots and some corn. If you don't have that, you can use some canned vegetables. So you can always substitute things. Chicken broth is always good to have on hand. But this little herb ox, is that what that's called? I never even knew that. It's the granulated kind. It's really good. You can mix it with some water. If you don't have the chicken broth, I add a little bit of this in with the soup anyway. And a couple of cans of diced tomatoes, stewed tomatoes, whatever you have. And we're going to add some water to the pot and get this thing going. Oh, and you can either use ground beef or chicken. I happen to have some rotisserie chicken score. I already had taken and chopped up and everything. So I'm good to go. Let's make this soup. Oh, I just love it when I can make these videos and speed up this part. It's always so awesome. I actually do chop pretty quickly and peel, but that just comes from doing it for many years and having 3 sons that love to eat. There's also a little trick that you can do for chopping tomatoes, potatoes, onions, whatever. My back got tired. And there's my husband stepping in to the side of the video. So once I get everything peeled and ready for chopping, I'm going to show you my little technique that makes things a little bit faster. Sharp knives are always good in the kitchen, but just be careful if you do this technique. Basically what I do, let me slow this down, is I take the potato, after I chop this one up, I'm going to show you slower, a little closer, and I take the knife and I basically just make about 4 lengthwise cuts, and then I turn the potato and I do the same thing crossways to that. So 3 or 4 cuts is usually good. Then you just lay your potato down, take your other knife and chop away, and you've already got the little cubed sections. If you get to the end and it's a little thick, you just turn it a few times and cut it. All right, back to speeding this up, and you can see all of the potatoes being cut with lightning speed. All right, enough of that. We do the same thing with the onion, of course. So I've got my potato and my onion here. I love these little cutting boards, by the way. They're just plastic. You can get them at Publix or wherever. But I love the fact that you can pick them up and turn them to where they fit in the pot. And it just makes it much easier than a flat or wooden cutting board. And they're washable. You put them in the dishwasher. Now I'm doing the cabbage here, and I've got a paring knife. And I have I'm an artist. I have pastel paints on my arm, but my knife, I couldn't find my regular knife that I usually do this, but this worked. It was just a little slower than I normally do. What you're doing is you're cutting in a little, almost like a reverse pyramid into the cabbage, and you take the core out. Then all I do, I'm back to speeding this up, is I just chop up about half the cabbage. I made a big pot of soup. It really wasn't quite half, so a decent amount of cabbage. Now I'm taking the mixed vegetables. I didn't use the whole pack of corn, just so you know. I only used about half of that with the other package of mixed vegetables. And I take those, I put them in a glass bowl because I put it in the microwave for about 3 minutes. It just kind of heats it up a little bit before I end up putting it in the pot. But first, I put the potatoes and the onion in the pot with, cover it more, about double of water in there. And then I add a little, even though I'm going to add some chicken broth, ignore that pink paint on my arm, I'm going to still put 2 teaspoons full of this chicken bouillon into the water when I boil it. You'll see me boil it in a minute. I also, whatever you have is what I was doing there. Whether you have Italian seasoning, basil, oregano, it's kind of a lot. I usually measure in my hand. That's about a teaspoon. I chose to use I think that was the Italian seasoning. So what you have on hand, about a teaspoon of that seasoning. Now I've got it in the pot. I took my vegetables out of the microwave, and the reason I heated them up is I don't want them to cool the pot off again when I put it back in there. So let your potatoes and onions come to a boil, then add the mixed vegetables, give it a good stir. I've already added my seasoning. Then I'm going to go ahead and add the tomatoes. But I wanted to show you, if you don't have stewed tomatoes, a can of tomato soup is good too. And then, you know, you can add some extra water. But I just did the diced tomatoes. And now I think I ended up, first I wasn't going to use the whole thing of chicken broth, but I ended up using that whole container. It's about 4 cups, just so you know, in one of those boxes. Now I'm adding the chicken. Fortunately, I already had it chopped up, but get yourself, cook some chicken and chop it up, or you can even get some canned chicken and use it, you know, if you're in a pinch or you don't have any chicken on hand. Uh-oh, my little TV tray thing was falling there. All right, here's where I added the rest of the chicken broth. And again, you just give it a good stir. I wait on the cabbage until later so that it's not quite so cooked to death, you know. So now it's been cooking a little while, and I'm going to go ahead and add the Orzo pasta. Once I feel like those vegetables and flavors are in good, that's probably about a half a cup of Orzo pasta. I have a tendency to add a lot of that stuff in my, or a lot of ingredients, period, and my soups become a stew. But that's okay. If you don't, you just add some more water, and if you feel like you don't have enough flavor, you can add a little more chicken broth. So you just stir that up. It's still nice and hot. I turn it down a little bit lower, and I just let it sit for a while until you just smell the good smells. I actually forgot to turn it down on low. So I'm glad I stirred it enough to where it didn't burn on the bottom. And that's why you want to turn it down on low. So, oh my goodness, it's smelling so good right now. It tastes delicious. The cabbage is not overcooked. The Orzo pasta is just about done. And we're ready to serve this up. I like to serve this with some crackers and some Parmesan cheese. Also, I add some pepper. You'll see me add in a little while. So now I am turning this down and just gonna let it cook a little bit longer, and then it's ready to go. All right, so it has simmered, and this whole process, wow, definitely took less than an hour, even, you know, with letting it cook. And these kind of recipes are always, I mean, they're good right now. We loved it. It tastes delicious, but somehow it's just really good the next day. I think it's just all the flavors combining together. Now, this was a large recipe, and you could cut this recipe in half if you don't need this much, but I always recommend, you know, go ahead and make a big batch. When it cools off, you can put them in Ziploc bags, the freezer bags, maybe quart-size bags, and freeze them, mark a date on them, and you have a good meal for later, you know? Why not? Maximize your time, right? Okay, adding the pepper, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Get in the kitchen and cook something, because right now we're in the middle of the coronavirus quarantine, and you deserve some good food. All right, guys, happy cooking.